I'm thrilled to welcome Gillian Wallace Horvat, the writer-director of the film I Blame Society, which is making its debut on demand on February 12th, this Friday. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Okay,
I'm doing
good.
good.
That's good to know. After having watched this this film, I had a lot of questions watching it, especially because this is a dramatized version of your real life. Now, I was looking on IMDb, and you've got tons of credits spanning everything from short films to special features on Blu-rays and mini documentaries, and spanning the entire gamut of editing, writing, directing, acting. So, is this your first feature-length film?
Yeah, this is the first feature that I've directed. Yeah.
Okay. I was combing through trying to find everything. You've just got so much work piled up. It's hard to see, what's a feature and what's a short. So first of all, congratulations. And second of all, what was it about stepping into your first feature role that you decided I'm going to make a horror comedy mockumentary about myself becoming a serial killer?
Well, I really feel like it wasn't my choice. I feel like I was forced into it. It was really, you know, um, I blame society. I blame that they're that's the way they made me. So it was, there were, I did have this wasn't like the first feature that I intended to make. I think you'd have to be insane to want um to act and direct in your first feature, unless you are are a really excellent actor and you have a lot of confidence in front of the camera. Um, but this it made sense because this film is an extension of a short documentary project that I did where I was on camera. So if I wanted to include that footage, then I would have to continue to uh, play myself as a fictional character. I mean, every time, I mean, everything on screen is basically a performance. People are never natural, even in documentaries. You'd have to, there's always an element of self-consciousness there. It's just, um, in a taking it into a narrative feature, it has to form part of a character arc, and that's kind of the difference is the level of control that changes.
So when you're playing yourself, how did you prepare to do that? Are you a trained performer, or was this just kind of making up as you went along?
Um, I had I did theater pretty seriously when I was younger, but I gave it up in disgust and changed to filmmaking because I felt there was more control there in terms of the end product. With there's some theater is like you know the the progenitor of filmmaking, but with what changes is the craft and the language of film that allows so much more precision and control for the storyteller, whereas in theater you're totally relying on the actors. Whatever they're supposed to say the lines, they're supposed to do what you told them to on stage, but really they could do absolutely anything. And I think that's kind of terrifying. So obviously I have control issues, and so I thought filmmaking was a better medium for me in that way. What you're missing is the excitement of live performance, definitely, or the connection with the audience. But I think because you have the whole language of filmmaking and technique at your disposal, it more than makes up for it for me personally. But in terms of playing myself, I'm a very self-aware and very self-conscious person. So I already knew all of my own personal weird tics, and it was pretty easy to just kind of mimic myself on screen. I don't know, but probably somebody else could have played me better. There's no question about it. It just had to do with continuity. But I've always thought that you fantasize about who would play you in the biopic of your life, and I've always hoped that it would be kind of like a thing like palindromes, where like people would kind of take turns and playing me, and it would mostly be like Tim Roth and Grace Jones.
I want to see a remake of this film with them in it. No offense to your abilities, but
Oh,
that sounds amazing. So in terms of kind of a side question about the idea of self-consciousness of playing yourself, there is a line in the film where you're talking about, I think it was your boyfriend character Keith, played by Keith Polson, who had mentioned that you have this weird tick that you do with your mouth. Is that something that you noticed and put in the film? And then when you, if that's the case, does it drive you crazy to know that you may be doing that while you're acting as yourself?
um, that was something that I noticed a lot when I was looking at the footage of the short documentary, that I have a tick when I'm on camera, that I purse my lips a lot. I don't know what it is. It's just like, it's just a nervous tick, which doesn't exist when I'm not on camera. You'll have to take my word for it because I'm on camera right now. But fortunately, playing it through the course of the shoot, I lost the nervous tick. So as the film goes on, you know, and that makes total sense. You know, like an actor like gains an experience. You know, they you know, just get a little less anxious in front of the camera and kind of learn how to control, but look like they're not controlling. So um, yeah, that was hard though, and it was frustrating. I um, but yeah, as the film goes on, it disappears.
I'll have to go back and watch it again to see if I noticed that, because the idea of, I assume that you shot it pretty much in sequence then.
Yeah.
So that becomes sort of a meta, um, not a commentary, but yeah, the undoing of a tick as you and your character kind of gain more confidence in what you're doing. Your character in the film gains confidence through doing some horrific things. But one of the things I wanted to ask you about, sort of related to that, is there's a lot of play with the techniques that are used in the film. There's a wonderful gag about jump cuts. There's a great introduction of music into this otherwise pretty much straight-laced documentary that signals a big change in the story and what's going on with your character. Was this all planned out at the script stage? Did you discover it while you were shooting, like, oh, that'd be cool if this happened, or was a lot of this in post?
No, that was conceived initially, uh, before we even started shooting. I thought that was like my main job as the director, was to chart those moments to um, as the film's tone changed and as it kind of transforms from something more naturalistic, like a found document, into something that is clearly edited and stylized, but by the person who is purportedly on screen. You know, I think that's one of the interesting things about the film, is that as you watch it, I hope that the audience has this growing awareness that and discomfort that, you know, she is a participant in her own exploitation a lot of the time, and that she is choosing to put these things on screen, to put things that put her in a bad light, to shoot herself naked to be more appealing. You know, it's all part of her decision and you know, her agency.
And you know, that's the fine line that your film walks, I think, is the idea of it starting off as this kind of bizarre mockumentary, but then as it goes darker, you're not quite sure, particularly towards the end, what you're supposed to be laughing at, if anything at all, because it becomes increasingly absurd but increasingly dark as well. So yeah, it's when you were putting the film together, did you wrestle with that tonal shift at all, or did you know pretty much at the outset, this is how I'm going to film it and put it together, or were there any struggles with the edit?
The editing went really smoothly, honestly. And that's a testament to you know, our amazing editor, uh, Sarah Beth Shapiro, who she's Riley Stern's editor as well. She does all his films, and and also an editor who came on at the end to help us with some additional scenes we shot, Brett Bachman, who's the editor on Mandy. And so they both are incredible. And they gave me a lot of confidence, because I definitely you lose your objectivity as you make the film, and you definitely, uh, you can love your footage and be like, yeah, that's exactly how I hope it turned out. But I think that you definitely, as you channel through the permutations of it, you kind of are like, I don't know what's the right direction. I don't know what I'm doing. Your editors are really like, for me, it was like my mom and dad, like kind of, encouraging me and giving me, and telling me to keep going. We're going the right direction. Um, I mean, tone is so important in all of my work. I really walk a fine line with the tone that I do with dark comedies that are meant to, have elements of satire to it. So there's kind of, they're trying to say something, but also to be enjoyed just on the genre level that they operate within. Um, and also kind of playing with uh, humor, horror, and also the erotic as well. And so, uh, you know, channeling between those tones, I think that's the most fun. And I think it's also the most fun for the audience because they can't anticipate what's happening next. They have no expectations to be disappointed or upended, because they just can't actually have any expectations because they don't know what's going to happen next. And it's great if they don't know when to laugh and they find themselves laughing and then they feel bad about it, but they think it's okay. Like that's all good. I laugh at really dark stuff all the time. So I think the darker it gets, the funnier it gets.
Oh yeah. Um, One of the things that struck me about the film is that the Hollywood that your character Gillian encounters doesn't have a lot of women positions in power, yet the men in the movie are constantly reciting the refrains of what I might call modern social justice, such as diversity, allyship, intersectionality, strong female characters as sort of a catchphrase. Is this purely a function of the story you're trying to tell, or is this the real Gillian Wallace Horvat saying that in your experience, masculine power in Hollywood, particularly, those structures are still in place. They've just put on this kind of coat of protective feminism.
um yeah, I think that masculine privilege is much more insidious than it used to be, because whereas the misogyny used to be a lot more transparent and you knew where you stood with people, um, God bless them. They now, I think it's more craven, it's more spineless, the way that nobody's everybody's really covering their ass and they're not honest to your face about whether they how they feel or not. It's just this kind of job insecurity, which is understandable, and also kind of a dawning awareness of their own potential irrelevance. And but it's a losing battle. The tide is turning, and uh, you know it's just also, it's bad capitalism for the men in these positions not to take a more credible attitude towards the women that they work with, because women are half of the audience. They'd be making a lot more money if they made films with authentic female voices that really appealed to women. And I think men will enjoy it too. I've always had found that men really enjoy like the work that I do, because it's operates in like a very vulgar tone that men feel comfortable with, that I feel comfortable with. So I think it definitely reaches across the aisle. So yeah, it is certainly expressing my frustration, um, my personal Gillian frustration with that, as well as fictional Gillian. It definitely works for the film because it gives her, an added feeling of stress and in her life that helps push her towards the edge.
Definitely. Now, in terms of crafting the story, you co-wrote this with Chase Williamson, who shows up in the film as a version of himself. Most people know him as an actor from John Dies at the End and The Guest. This is, I think, his first writing credit. At least that's what IMDb told me. How did you come to collaborate with him on the story, and what was his contribution to helping you tell a version of your story?
Well, Chase is a brilliant writer, and I met him when we were working on a short together that he was the lead in that I wrote and directed. And he just brings so much to the table in terms of his intelligence and his sense of humor that I mean, I immediately wondered why he wasn't writing. And then I found out that he was, and he just kind of, didn't know where to get his stuff out, and like also was a little shy because he hadn't, it hadn't been, he's more known as an actor instead of a writer. But in fact, he's most talented than people who only write professionally. Like he's more talented than a lot of like professional writers. He's And we also kind of just vibed in terms of our sensibilities and our sense of humor and things like that. So uh, I felt that he knew me really well, so he would be able to write me, accurately and making me look good, playing to my strengths in that sense. Um, but also he is a true crime aficionado, and he knows so much about true crime and real life murderers that I don't. So I would have been incredibly stupid not to get him involved in the film and to have him pitch in, because his contributions are invaluable, especially in the first act of the film, where the character of Gillian is building up her confidence and in the steps that murderers usually make from more benign crimes like shoplifting and breaking and entering and things like that. And I didn't know that that's what serial killers usually do. They kind of build up, take baby steps. Seems smart. You don't want to go all out if you're not ready for it. I understand.
Well, that's fascinating. Adding some of that the context of what your character was trying to do, and you sort of added the personality that you know yourself to be, and how you would interact with that reality. It's very cool. Well, I think we're just about at time here, so I want to thank you very much for taking the time to talk with me about I Blame Society. It's a really weird and twisted and brilliant work, and I'm looking forward to whatever comes next. I hope you've enjoyed your venture into feature filmmaking, and that you'll do something else again soon.
I hope so too. That would be great.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on this film. Everyone should check it out on Friday. And yeah, thanks again.
Thank you so much, Ian. I really appreciate it.
All right, take care.